Hey, Jesus fans, welcome to True North Podcast, where we grow closer to God together. This podcast was brought to you by Solid Rock Church in Irving, Texas, and our host, Pastor Ed Snyder. To find out more about this podcast, visit our website at truenorthdfw.org. Now let's join Pastor Snyder in a new direction and a new destination.
And welcome, everybody. Good morning on this Monday morning, the new time slot for True North Podcast to drop. And we are so glad that you're joining us today. We are going into part 2 of rebuilding what the beast has destroyed. In other words, we're talking about rebuilding your self-esteem. It's going to be a great episode today. Get a pad of paper, get a pencil, pen, get yourself a cup of coffee, and we'll be right back. And we're back. All right, folks, we're diving into part 2 of rebuilding what the beast has destroyed. I think it's very important that we pay attention to this subject of restoring or rebuilding our self-esteem. There are so many people, you'll be amazed, and I'm going to give you some stats toward the end of our time together today, of how many people actually suffer from low self-esteem. As a pastor, and in ministry for right at 40 years now, I have seen this over and over and over and over. Phenomenal people with incredible talent, skills, abilities that could just change the world. Absolutely be a phenomenal world changer. Can't move past the first step because they are crippled with low self-esteem. Somebody or a group of people, they have been bullied. They have been made fun of. Somebody dear to them has said, you are stupid and all this stuff. And when you're told that so many times, you start believing it. And so their greatness, their skill sets are tarnished, tore down. They are rendered unable because of a crippling self-esteem. We really have got to pay attention to this. And a lot of people, folks, and I know I would be this way. I was this way. Remember, in my story, I was the fat kid at school, the quiet kid, shy kid, and I was the bully magnet in my elementary, junior high years until I got into football and started beating some heads in, and then things kind of changed. But by then I was so angry, I was not pleasant to be around because everybody was afraid of my hair trigger. And so I understand. I've lived this life. I know what it's like, and you've got to break free of what the beast has destroyed in your life and start rebuilding that self-esteem so that you can now be rendered able to expand on the skill sets that God has given you, your abilities that God has given you, your dreams, your visions that you have in what you want to do in life, raise a family, in ministry, in your local church. God has a plan for you, and you need to execute that plan. In order to do that, we've got to rebuild that self-esteem and get confident, because I can do all things through Jesus Christ that strengthens me. So we've got to get healing on this. So let's do a little bit of review from last week, because we shifted gears. We went from a Wednesday morning drop to a Monday morning drop. So we haven't talked for a week and a half. So Monday morning at 9 o'clock is our new time slot where we drop a new episode so that you have the week to enjoy our episodes here at True North Podcast and share it with others throughout the week. And so anyway, this is a very exciting about what God is doing through this ministry of True North Podcast. Now, as far as our review, we left off last week with starting or ending with a 12-stepper, or in other words, 12 things that you can do. And I wrote about this on medium.com, is number one, establish a strong relationship with God. As you know, as you have already found out, you can't do this by yourself. You've got to have assistance. You've got to have help. And there's no greater help than the divine strength that comes from God. And God can heal you. God can take care of all things. And so, again, there's nothing more nurturing than that of a strong relationship with God. Get into it. Folks, I'm right here. I'm an email away. I'm a text message away, and I will be happy to help you get to where you need to go. So, again, establish a strong relationship. Number 2 that we talked about a week and a half ago in our last episode is confront the genuine internal need for self-esteem. You really have got to confront that. You've got to realize I have to have good, strong self-esteem. I've got to feel good about myself. Or in other words, self-confidence. I've got to believe in my abilities, believe in my skill sets, believe in my talent. And again, recognize where it comes from. It comes from God. And so number 3, again, we talked about last episode, confront your guilt and get rid of it. Guilt will not help you. All right. Look into that mirror of your soul and the past failures and wrongdoings and be honest with yourself and only deal with what belongs to you. Don't believe the blame game. People get into the blame game and they're going to tell you, oh, if you wouldn't have done this and if you wouldn't have said that and you're a loser and that's why I'm not doing what I need to do because you're blah, 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 blah. You don't believe that mess. That's a bunch of junk. Okay. Only fix or address or get rid of what you own. If you said something, own it. If you did something, own it. All right. But don't own what doesn't belong to you. So confront your guilt, get rid of it. Number 4, we talked about surrendering the comfort zone of negative self-expectations. This is an amazing thing when I see this in counseling, how people get so comfortable. I'm going to drop something on you. You really need to listen. Get your pen ready and get ready to take a note here. It's amazing to me how people live in the zone, the comfort zone of negative self-expectations. They expect something bad to happen. They believe that this is just the way my life is. My life is a train wreck. It is how I was born, yada, yada, yada. And they live in the swamp. And they're so ingrained, shall I use the word institutionalized, in living in the swamp that's what they expect. They don't expect anything greater. So you have got to surrender that comfort zone of negative self-expectations and believe what I'm telling you today. You have greatness in you. You have abilities and skills that God has given to you. And quite honest, He is expecting you to exercise those skills and talents. The enemy has come in and tried to destroy it. The beast has done a number on your self-esteem or self-confidence. Number 5, we talked about discover and accentuate your strong points. Remember, we cannot dwell on all the time on our weaknesses. Our weaknesses do need to be addressed. They do need to be fixed, but you need to capitalize on your strengths, what you can do, and quit worrying so much about what you can't do. Okay. If you're looking at a job opportunity and you read the description of what is expected from that job, so many times we focus on, oh, I can't do that. And, oh man, I've never done that before. And we start doubting ourselves. But there are items in there. You know what? I've done that before. You know, I think I'd like that. You know what? I can figure that out. Start living on the positive side. Start living and accentuate what you can do in that job description. What you can do in that in life, in your family. You know, you may not have everything figured out. Who does? I mean, come on. Who has everything all figured out? Nobody. We all are on a learning curve called life. And so discover that, accentuate it, and move on. Okay. And I think the last point we got to number 6 the last time we were together, and that is control your situation by doing something every day that makes you proud. This kind of goes along with number 5. It goes along with accentuating your strengths, discovering your strengths. So once you discover that, once you see that, now you're going to control your situation by doing something every day which makes you proud. You're going to accomplish something. You're going to make something happen. You're going to create something. You're going to make someone feel good. You're going to start exercising those skills, abilities, and talents that God has given to you, and it's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you proud. Just like I shared with you before we signed off in the last episode about the street sweeper at the University of Mississippi. He's sweeping a street. He's picking other people's trash up, but that was his street, and he's got the cleanest street in the university. And so, again, do something that's going to make you proud. Okay, so here we go. We're going to pick up now at number 7. And number 7 is, remember, what you do at work is not who you are. All right, now, this is something that we kind of need to think through. You cannot allow anyone, not even yourself, to define you by your occupation. Now, what I mean by that, I'm not talking to you folks that are listening that have found your passion, found your career, found your calling. If that's where you are right now, you that's a different story for you. That's a different set of guidelines. You need to, again, discover and accentuate your strong points in that career, in that passion, and move forward and go greater than what you have been. I'm talking to right now on this point to the people that perhaps have had a rough patch. I may be talking to an ex-offender that caught a felony, and now they're having the struggle of trying to even find a job or an employer that will accept them with a background. And so you may have to take a job flipping burgers, or you may have to take a job pitching cans on the back of a trash truck. You got to have some cash come in because you got bills to pay, okay? I want you to focus, and I feel I'm speaking into your spirit right now. Do not, whatever you do not resign yourself as, I'm a trash man, or I'm going to flip burgers all my life, okay? If you're flipping burgers, make it a goal. I'm going to own this place, all right? And whatever, you do not allow that occupation to define you, okay? If you allow this to happen, it will diminish you. You can be the best at what you can be on that job or that situation, and it is not what you want to do, but use it until you get what you want. Use it as a building block. Use it as a stepping stone. Get some history under you, some good history of good employment, showing up at work every day and doing a good job, getting that employer to say, man, that's the best worker I've ever had. Then when you start to step up, when you start to move forward in your career or in your calling, in your passion, you've got somebody to say, look, I gave them a second chance. I gave them an opportunity, and they excelled on it. So again, folks, this is something that's very, very important. And one thing is for sure, be the best at whatever you do and take it with pride in it. In other words, that behavior will bleed over into the next level. You're developing and modifying your mindset. You're modifying your behavior and saying, look, I may be pitching cans, but I'm going to be the best at this. I'm going to find the most efficient way to get it done. Developing those skill sets in that particular job is going to bleed over. That attitude is going to bleed over, and it's going to make you successful. And it's going to help you feel good about yourself and be proud of what you're accomplishing. All right. Number 8, again, another very important step. Number 8 is learn. This is a learning thing, to release your pain. Now, if you've read any kind of self-help motivational books, where they all talk about, and I've even preached a message called "There's Power in Pain." When we go through situations, it's painful, it hurts, and sometimes God is removing things from our life, and sometimes He's showing some things, having us learn something, but there's always a positive outcome. But there's at one point, somewhere along the process, ladies and gentlemen, you got to release that pain. You can't waller in that self-pity. You can't keep reliving the situation and renewing the pain that came with that situation. So you have to defeat the feeling of low self-esteem and learn to appreciate yourself. Now, we talked last episode about the danger of self-love. A lot of the psychiatrists and psychologists and all of that out there will tell you got to learn to love yourself. And yes, you do to a degree. Okay. You do need to love yourself. You do need to understand that you're a lovable, passionate person, and you have feelings, and you know how to care for people, and you want to be cared for. You want to be loved. Every person does. Don't sit there and think, yeah, Pastor Snyder, I don't need love. I just need to get. No, you do. All right. So anyway, the level of self-love has to be watched, has to be measured, because when we love ourselves too much, now it turns into pride. Now it turns into a brag fest. And now we're pushing people away from us because all they hear is all about us. So don't fall in love with yourself too much, all right? But to make this happen, you have to arrive at the point that you have learned to release the pain of the past. Now, folks, this is not an easy road, but it must be traveled. You have got to go down this road to be able to recover and rebuild your self-esteem. Now, if you have purchased our book, Control the Beast, that's available on Amazon.com, in chapter 1 of that book, and if you go back into the archives on our website, truenorthdfw.org, if you go back into the website, you will find a podcast or an episode that I did on the power of understanding. So again, in the chapter, go back to the book, or go back in our archives on our website and look for the power of understanding and listen to that or read that chapter. And when we come to terms and understand the how, the what, the when, the why of the event that caused the pain, we can begin to release the pain. And of course, here's something that's very important. You must forgive them and release them, if for no other reason, for your happiness. Ignoring will not make it go away. The Bible says, and I've learned this lesson in the past, and it was a hard lesson, but it ended up being an incredibly powerful lesson. The Bible instructs us to pray for our enemies, pray for those that hurt you. I'm like, wow. I've read that all my life. But not until somebody inflicted incredible emotional pain upon me that I had to actually exercise that instruction from the Bible to start praying for this person that absolutely cut my heart out. And it was. I'm going to tell you something. It was hard, because let's face it. Let's really be honest with ourselves right now. What we really want to do is pray for that person. God, kill them. Just kill them. Make a piano fall on their head. That's what we want to pray. But that's not what the Bible is instructing us to pray. Our instruction from the Bible is to pray, God bless them. God give them what they need. When we start, and folks, I've learned this, and I know you're going, are you kidding me? Are you out of your ever-loving mind? No, I'm not. And again, it's a hard lesson, but when you start making yourself pray for your enemies, pray for those that hurt you, you will experience an amazing release from the pain and the whole traumatic situation. And I promise you, folks, it will take the sting out of the situation. So practice it, go for it. And again, the power of understanding. When we understand the why, the what for, the how, and all of that, it will help us deal with it and release that pain. So again, ignoring it will not make it go away. You have to deal with it. I've had some hurtful situations. I know what I'm talking about. All the material and content of this podcast, in every episode, I am not coming to you because I read a book about it. I'm coming to you because I have experienced it. I've walked the road. I've got the t-shirt, the coffee mug, the ink pen, the wristband, and everything else. So yeah, I may have read about it, but it was after I experienced it. Number 9, and something that's important, rid yourself of anger. Okay. Now, again, in past episodes of True North Podcasts, and again, I really want to encourage you to go back into our archives on the website and listen to these podcasts and grab the content. We have identified anger as a very negative emotion, and we understand, when we get angry, not good things happen. But there's something else that we need to learn about anger, and that is anger is a defense mechanism. It becomes a shield to hide behind because of pain. Anger also produces a false sense of power over other people. Okay? You need to identify your anger source and diffuse it so that you can move forward. Again, we've been hurt so much, and that's part of what I experienced in my teenage years and growing up, that actually I got angry because I was hurt. Yes, because I was made fun of, I was beat up, I was bullied, and all of that stuff. But also, it became a defense mechanism, so that when I got angry and started yelling and hitting walls and putting my fist through doors and all of that stuff, it scared those people off, so I didn't have to deal with it. You follow me? So keep in mind what we talk about earlier. Anger is identified as a negative emotion, but it also becomes that defense mechanism that we have subconsciously installed into our life to help us deal with it that we don't want to deal with. Okay, number 10, learn to love unconditionally. Oh boy. Woo-wee. It's going to be a very bold statement here. Some say we have to love people and accept them as they are. Not true. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to repeat that. This is a bold statement. Some say we have to love people and accept them as they are. That's just not true. I'm not going to love them and accept the abuser as they are. I'm not going to hate them. I can enjoy them maybe, possibly, but there's something that we're going to talk about next up here. But you got to release them, because if you don't release them, they're going to own you. They're going to captivate you, and that's all you're going to think about. So there's got to be a release there. But, when you got an abuser, especially a repetitive abuser, you got to forgive them and you got to release them. However, you don't have to be around them. Okay, maybe you can, especially if there's a family member, especially if it's a family member, you have to love them. They're family. Okay, and nothing comes between family, but you don't have to go around them. Okay, you've got to isolate that situation so that you're not hurt any longer. I really hope you're getting this today. I hope I'm coming across with some understanding. So, you don't have to accept them as they are. Again, and if I do, or you do, I open myself up to more hurt, more problems for the future. So understand their shortcomings and love them. Love them is good. Okay, but we need the same in return. So the point is, if we cannot allow ourselves to hate those who hurt us, we have to forgive, love them to a certain point, and move forward. Okay, and bring understanding. To bring understanding, we can love in some cases with. I'm getting ready to say this. Listen up. Write this down. In some cases, with boundaries. Okay, you've got to set up that boundary. You're not going to cross this boundary. I'm going to set this up. You're not allowed to do this, this, or this. Okay. Number 11 is a 4-pillar process, or maybe we can call this a 4-step. Number 1 is forgive. Number 2 is forgive. The 3rd pillar or step is forgive. And finally, the 4th, guess what? It's forgive. Okay. Now, notice I said that 4 times because I wasn't, it wasn't for emphasis. It's because forgiveness is the 4 pillars in rebuilding self-esteem. It's what forgiveness is actually what this whole subject sits on. That's the foundation of it. Okay, you know, when we learn to forgive genuinely, you are learning the powerful art of success. Think of a strong pillar. It's not a yard ornament that just looks pretty. It's strong. It's sturdy. It stands in silence and supports the structure. Okay, think about that. Forgiveness is the unassuming principle by which your self-esteem band increases. If you cannot forgive others, you will not be able to forgive yourself for your own shortcomings. So practicing this step, number 11, the 4 pillars of success, is forgiveness. That will bring you so much peace, is when you finally release that person or persons and let it go. I just, in fact, I want to stop right here. We got one more and we're just about out of time, but there is a church planter in the state of Montana that came across my Twitter feed, and they asked for prayer. Their teenage son, of course, in public school and doing what he's supposed to be doing, was bullied. And from my understanding, unmercifully, just bullied. Finally, the main bullier started bullying him and pulled out a knife and stabbed him 10 times. Stabbed this teenager 10 times. Now, by the grace of God, he didn't hit any arteries or organs, thankfully. Now, the kid spent some time in ICU. It was a really scary, touchy situation. But here's the powerful thing that brought tears to my eyes when I called his father and told him, hey, we're praying for you. And I understand. I reached out to him with a phone call, the father, the church planter. And he told me, he said, my son was on the stretcher and they were putting him in the ambulance. And he told the EMT and the police officer, I forgive them. Whew. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional here. But for that young man that's sitting there with 10 stab wounds in his body, said, I forgive them. Folks, that kid's going to do great things. And thankfully now he is out of the hospital. He's home. He's recovering. But folks, this kid had every reason in this world to hate that kid and want revenge on that kid. But instead, he released that bully that stabbed him 10 times through the power of forgiveness. All right. One more step, and then we're out of time. Number 12, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. You have everything to gain. You can rebuild what the beast has tried to destroy. You can get real happiness back and either reestablish an old interrupted relationship or establish new relationships. Either way, you gain from it. And you can come back stronger. You can come back wiser. You can come back closer to God. And the people around you, when you start controlling that beast, is going to notice. And I to end this podcast today, I want to bring to you Philippians chapter 4 and verse 13. I quoted it earlier in this episode from the New King James Version. Paul said, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." You can do this. If you've got God on your side, if you've got the Spirit of the Lord in you, you can make this happen. A relationship with Christ can bring you a long way in controlling the beast. And my prayer today is that you grow to your full potential and succeed beyond your wildest dreams today, tomorrow, and the rest of your life. Have a great day on purpose. See you next week.
Thank you for joining us at True North Podcast. You can find us on iHeartRadio or any other podcasting platform. If you want to have any questions, visit us at truenorthdfw.org. We'll catch y'all next week.